Welcome back to the channel. DC Comics have a lot of work to do. They want to get the trust of their readers, their fan base, back again. People have been basically just abandoning ship when it comes to DC Comics. Their sales have bottomed out, but they've got this big reboot coming up in 2023, right? The very first month, we're getting Dawn of DCU, and I think some DC fans are giving it a little side eye, like, what's going on over there? It better be real change, significant change, specifically when it comes to the creative teams. It appears it's most likely just going to be a shell game. Them moving around their bad creators like a Tini Howard, T. Franklin, Stephanie Phillips, Clune Rad, John Ridley. They're just going to move them on to new titles, but we're not really going to get significant change. At least that's what it looks like. Starting with Harley Quinn number 28, which hits shelves March 28th, 2023. Writer Tini Howard and artist Sweetie Boo will take on the Clown Princess of Crime. Writer Stephanie Phillips and artist Matteo Lolli will end their current run with issue number 27, with Phillips leaving the book after 2 full years. And to be quite honest, that was 1 year at least, at a minimum, too long. Stephanie Phillips' Harley Quinn series, the run she had, absolutely tanked and died almost immediately. The very first issue of Future State Harley Quinn showed a lot of promise, and nothing else since has shown even an ounce of promise. The problem is not replacing Stephanie Phillips 1 year too late at a minimum. The problem is you're replacing Stephanie Phillips with Tini Howard, pretty much the same writer. Wow, we're going to get the exact same perspective on the character, but you're going to have a new name on the title, and Stephanie Phillips will likely go over to Catwoman or something, another title over at DC Comics, and there really won't be meaningful change. Readers have not abandoned DC Comics because the characters all of a sudden suck. They've abandoned DC Comics because the creative has gotten so bad, there's absolutely no hope that it can get better. We've seen almost 2 years of a lot of these writers. When it comes to Clune Rad, still on Wonder Woman, this entire time have not had a readable issue to date on Wonder Woman. It's absolutely shocking. Stephanie Phillips not only has had Harley Quinn, but she also had a Wonder Woman miniseries. Absolutely dropped the ball. John Ridley got his own DC Black Label series, like premiere event series, despite never having any success in comic books whatsoever, and he got to spearhead a new Batman title, which has failed spectacularly the entire time that John Ridley has been on there. Somehow, T. Franklin is still writing these Harley Quinn animated series tie-ins and is now getting extra work over at Marvel Comics. It appears, this is the only way that I can see it, the only way it makes sense to me, that DC Comics' budget is so low that they're still penny pinching on the creatives. They must have a plan to continue with the exact same amount of comic books coming out, but they don't have any more money to spend. So rather than cutting back and upping the quality and dropping the quantity, they're going to just keep with it and see if they can just throw a new coat of paint on all this stuff. And maybe we won't notice that they're just playing a shell game with all their terrible creatives. And there are other creatives, and it appears very likely are staying on titles that they've absolutely bombed. Case in point, Tom Taylor on Superman Son of Kal-El. He got worldwide headlines for that comic book. Everybody in the world received news coverage about that comic series, yet it still can't crack the top 75 at this point. But it appears there won't be any change when it comes to Tom Taylor's involvement with Superman. We've got information about the new era of Superman. I talked about it at the beginning of my DC solicitations video. The new era of Superman has been revealed. Action Comics 1050 will see the hero in his biggest battle against Lex Luthor ever. The upcoming landmark issue from DC Comics will see an all-star creative team featuring the likes of Philip Kennedy Johnson, Mike Perkins, Tom Taylor, and Joshua Williamson set the stage for what's to come in Clark Kent and the world of Superman. This is what Philip Kennedy Johnson, the writer on Action Comics himself, had to say. It's no overstatement to say Action Comics 1050 is a new beginning for Superman. And that comic book is coming out the very last week of 2022. This is the dawn of the new Superman, the new direction for their #2 flagship character, but we're not having any meaningful change. We're still having the same creators on there. And I'm assuming that because Philip Kennedy Johnson and Tom Taylor are still on this. If they were launching out a new series with a new creative vision, with new writers, you would assume they would be involved with that project and be launching out to whatever they're doing. You could say, perhaps, maybe Joshua Williamson is taking over the Superman title, and maybe this is Tom Taylor saying goodbye. But that doesn't really make sense either, because Joshua Williamson just announced all of his Substack creator-owned stuff. It doesn't appear he's going to be writing much, if anything, really at DC Comics in 2023. It sounds like he's doing his creator-owned stuff, and I don't blame him for that. Maybe we'll get lucky, and this isn't what it appears to be, but they've said this is the new era of Superman, but there's no real change in there. They're going to do a status quo change, apparently, John Kent's going to come out to his father, and then we're just going to go on with the same creators that have been bombing out the title. Unfortunately, Philip Kennedy Johnson's Action Comics, which was pretty darn good, although the World saga lasted far too long, but I think he just had to be there so they could establish John Kent as Superman on Earth. All the negativity associated with what Tom Taylor was doing on the flagship Superman title just kind of killed that one as well. Not to mention it was coming off the Brian Michael Bendis Superman fiasco. A lot of things were moving against Philip Kennedy Johnson, but they need to do something to differentiate what Dawn of DCU is going to be from Infinite Frontier, because quite frankly, Future State and Infinite Frontier are an abomination to everything about comic books and DC Comics related and characters. Bringing back the same creators that ruin the titles and just putting them on new titles is absolutely not going to be enough. We need new creative talent. If you want to work on the cheap, you need to go out there and scout and find the real new talents in comic books rather than taking Marvel Comics sloppy seconds and all the writers that destroyed X-Men already. But it doesn't appear that's in the future for DC Comics. There are a couple things that look promising. Number one, obviously, Jeff Johns coming back with this like golden age stuff where he's working with the JSA. It appears he might be more involved with DC Comics moving forward. We also got this snippet in the December 2022 solicitations about Mark Waid when they talked about Dark Crisis Big Bang, which he's writing. Join Dr. Multiverse on a haunting journey through these newly reformed realities from Jurassic League to DC Mech, from Dark Knights of Steel to Batman 89 and back again, in a guest star galore all-new epic by comics legend and DC architect Mark Waid. Mark Waid being bumped up as like the creative lead, like the #1 writer at DC Comics, isn't the worst idea ever. If he's in a leadership role, I do think that will blow up right in their faces. He's not really a leader. He's not a good people person. And he's certainly not good with communicating with the public. That's just not his forte. But if he's the guy kind of captaining the ship on what they're going to do with the characters, he understands the characters. So that could be good news, perhaps. But DC Comics in Dawn of DCU only had one chance to make a first impression. The first thing we saw with this new era of Superman was no changes. And the second thing that we saw with a new creative team being announced on Harley Quinn is essentially they're taking a bad writer from another series and just putting it on that one. Great, you're playing a shell game. It's just a new coat of paint on a situation that's absolutely destroyed the sales of DC Comics. If you don't believe me, you need to watch this video that I created talking about the comic book sales in July of 2022. Over half of all DC Comics absolutely bottomed out. The proof is in the pudding. DC Comics needs to accept this and realize their creators are absolute failures right now. If you don't see this right here, there's also a link in the video description.